Up next on the Rockbridge Report. Rockbridge County High School advanced Spanish students became the teacher in a new after-school tutoring program.
And an increase in gas tax could raise prices by around 7 cents a gallon in the valley. We'll give you more information on that next. There's a Chick-fil-A on wheels in town, and you won't believe how long some customers waited.
And UVA is headed to the Final Four this weekend. We'll show you the teams arriving in Minneapolis later.
All that and more next on the Rockbridge Report.
Live from the campus of Washington and Lee University with news from Rockbridge County, this is the Rockbridge Report.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Adid Ahmed.
And I'm Sophie Badani. Thanks for joining us. President Trump is the first president in nearly half a century to refuse to release his tax records. As pressure on him to do so heats up, a battle is brewing that could go all the way to the Supreme Court. CNN's Lauren Fox has the details.
House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal making the first move in what is expected to turn into a major political and legal showdown, formally requesting 6 years of President Trump's personal tax returns and records from 8 of his business entities.
Is that all?
That's all.
Oh, usually it's 10, so I guess they're giving up.
The president suggesting he won't comply.
We're under audit, despite what people said. Until such time as I'm not under audit, I would not be inclined to do that.
Despite Mr. Trump's long-standing explanation, an audit does not prevent an individual from releasing their tax returns. Richard Nixon did just that in 1973. The Washington Post reports that Mr. Trump has told advisors he plans to fight all the way to the Supreme Court, hoping to stall the issue until after the 2020 election, and that Treasury officials will not comply until they are compelled to do so. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who oversees the IRS, declining to answer when asked about the issue last month.
I'm not aware of there's ever been a request for an elected official's tax return, but we will follow the law and we will protect the president as we would protect any individual taxpayer under their rights.
Under a provision in the federal tax code, Chairman Neal is allowed to request anyone's tax returns as long as they can show it's part of Congress's oversight role or an investigation.
The Virginia General Assembly approved increasing truck registration fees and a regional gas tax to pay for improvements to Interstate 81. Both the House and the Senate voted Wednesday to accept the increases. Supporters say the gas tax increase would raise prices by around 7 cents a gallon in areas around I-81. The extra money would pay for upgrades to the highway to improve safety and traffic flow. There are more than 2,000 crashes on the road each year, with more than a quarter involving heavy trucks.
Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax is calling for investigations into sexual assault allegations against him. Fairfax spoke to reporters yesterday, saying the accounts given by both accusers do not line up with the facts. CNN's Jake Burns reports.
Good morning, everybody.
Before taking his spot in front of Virginia's Senate.
Good morning, everyone.
Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax stood before a bank of cameras to once again deny sexual assault allegations made by Dr. Vanessa Tyson and Meredith Watson.
While these allegations simply are not true, I cannot begin to tell you the pain that these false allegations have caused me and my family.
The Lieutenant Governor released the full polygraph reports he says show he is telling the truth. Plus, Fairfax says he's instructed his attorney to ask police in Boston and Durham to launch probes into Tyson and Watson's accusations.
I am confident that these highly professional and experienced law enforcement officers are committed to treating accusers fairly, seriously, and respectfully, while also treating the accused fairly and ascertaining the truth or falsity of these allegations.
Ted Bundy passed a polygraph.
House Republicans say a public hearing to analyze evidence is needed, even if a law enforcement investigation moves forward. The GOP says Democrats are holding that up.
Dr. Tyson and Ms. Watson have been adamant that they will not participate in a hearing that is not bipartisan.
I think what's on the table is a circus.
The Democrats say Republicans are using Dr. Tyson and Ms. Watson to play partisan games.
Again, they're in the majority. If they want to have these hearings, they can do it. There's nothing we can do to stop them.
The attorney for accuser Meredith Watson says her client would prefer a public hearing. She claims an investigation could go on for years and be done in secrecy. The Ethiopian Minister of Transport released a preliminary report on the Ethiopian Airlines crash today after closely examining the flight data recorders from the Boeing 737 MAX 8. Investigators determined the crew performed Boeing's emergency procedures, quote, repeatedly, but still they were not able to gain control of the plane, and the Ethiopian Airlines flight nosedived into the ground, killing all 157 people on board. Recommendations from Ethiopian investigators seem to point the finger directly at Boeing as well as the FAA. Here's part of what the Ethiopian Airlines CEO's response to the report.
Today, we are very proud of our pilots because it is proved in the preliminary report that they have done beyond what they are expected to do.
President Trump announced a new policy on Mexico that dramatically shifts from what he's been saying for the past several days. He told reporters today that Mexico has a year to stop drugs from coming across the border, or he will close it down. But the president praised Mexico for apprehending migrants at its border with the U.S. CNN's Camila Bernal reports from McAllen, Texas, where there is a surge of asylum seekers crossing into the U.S.
Leslie Alvarez spent less than 2 days in detention, but those were the worst hours of her life. She says she was practically in a cage. She laid on the floor waiting to be put into a cold room. But despite being uncomfortable, getting into the United States was relatively quick for Alvarez. The surge of migrants seeking asylum at the border is overwhelming immigration authorities and forcing them to speed up the process.
I'm awfully proud of the work the men and women are doing down here. Very vigilant in what they're doing and very dedicated to the mission. But this is tough.
Which is why President Trump is threatening to close the border if Congress doesn't find a solution.
Mexico is now stopping people coming. Now, if they don't, or if we don't make a deal with Congress, the border is going to be closed, 100%.
Along the southern border from Brownsville, Texas to Southern California, there are 24 ports of entry. Critics say closing those ports would have a negative impact on the economy and could dry out the supply of car parts, beer, and produce like avocados. But proponents say shutting down the border could send a message to people like Alvarez and discourage them from coming. She says she expected something different, better treatment, but now knows this was just a small part of her future fight to stay in the United States.
The president plans to visit the southern border tomorrow. He will travel to Calexico, California to see a 30-foot section of replacement fencing that was installed last year. The White House says Trump will also participate in a roundtable discussion with law enforcement. A boy has come forward to police, saying he is a 14-year-old who was held by kidnappers for 7 years. Police are investigating whether he is Timothy Pitson, who vanished in 2011. CNN's Natasha Chen has the very latest.
He doesn't know who's not going to harm him and who is.
Residents in Kentucky are baffled after police say a boy claiming he's Timothy Pitson showed up in their neighborhood.
He looked like he had been beat up, yes, punched in the face a couple of times. You could see the fear on him and how nervous he was.
Timothy Pitson was 6 years old, one of the last times anyone who knew the boy saw him alive. This was in Aurora, Illinois on May 11, 2011. His mother reportedly killed herself days later. The boy, who identified himself as Pitson, told police he had escaped kidnappers and run from a Red Roof Inn across a bridge from Ohio into Kentucky. Police have not confirmed the boy's story or his identity. The teen described his kidnappers as two white men with bodybuilder-type builds. One has a spiderweb tattoo on his neck, the other has a snake tattoo on his arms. They may be driving a Ford SUV with Wisconsin plates.
We know the description of their vehicle and what at least one of them looked like, so we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that.
Pitson's family is holding out hope that he may finally be safe.
Well, I'm very hopeful that it's him and that he's okay.
I'm Natasha Chen reporting.
Many in Lexington and surrounding areas lined up for the opening of the new Chick-fil-A on wheels.
Right, and she came up from Florida and we wanted something fun to do. So we're standing in line for 2 hours. Or drive.
The new Chick-fil-A trailer opened yesterday. It's off Route 11 in the Tractor Supply parking lot. If you're craving nuggets or fries, then you're out of luck. The mobile Chick-fil-A has a limited menu. It is open only lunch from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Wednesday through Friday. On Saturdays, it will be open from 11 to 3 p.m. or while supplies last. The mobile Chick-fil-A is supplied by the location in Stanton Locals are hopeful that there is a permanent Chick-fil-A location in Lexington's future.
You know, this is kind of a test, I think, to see if it's enough traffic to bring one here in Lexington, and I've always wanted one.
Officials in Washington say there is a looming threat in the area that requires emergency action. Stay with us to find out what iconic tree is in danger and why.
I'm Isabel Chiodo. It finally feels like spring this week in Lexington, but that doesn't always mean sun. Find out more coming up next in my weather forecast.
Washington's cherry blossom season has gone well this year thanks to warm weather. But officials claim that Washington's iconic trees are under a looming threat that requires emergency action. Decades of wear and tear from foot traffic, combined with rising sea levels and a deteriorating seawall, have created a chronic flooding problem in the tidal basin. The 107-acre man-made reservoir borders the Jefferson Memorial and is home to the highest concentration of cherry blossom trees. During periods of heavy rain, the floodwaters completely overflowed the seawall in multiple locations and soaked the tree roots. Experts say the higher silt concentration of the floodwaters is shortening the tree's lifespan.
Some good news for coastal areas. Researchers at Colorado State University are forecasting a slightly below normal Atlantic hurricane season. They are anticipating 5 hurricanes this year, with 2 that are considered major, meaning Category 3 or higher. That's about 75% of normal activity, and it's because of a developing El Niño and cooler Atlantic waters should help inhibit powerful storms. Contrast that to last year when we saw storm activity that was 20% above average with 8 hurricanes. 2 of those developed into major storms that struck populated areas. Hurricane Michael ravaged Florida's panhandle with 155-mile-per-hour winds, and Hurricane Florence flooded much of the Carolinas with more than 30 inches of rain. Each storm caused an estimated $25 billion in damages. Keep in mind, the new forecast does not predict where the storms might form, or if they'll make landfall. Colorado State will update the forecast in June, July, and August to increase accuracy. Hurricane season officially starts June 1st and lasts until November 30th. Well, we've just had some beautiful sunny weather, and we've had a couple nice days in a row now.
Yeah, I haven't had to walk outside with a jacket because it's just so nice out there. Isabel, can you tell us a little bit more about where we're going with this weather?
That's right, this week has been awesome. Spring has sprung in Lexington. But with spring does come those April showers. Let's take a look at our numbers. First, we have a lovely live shot of Washington and Lee's campus. Beautiful day we're having, really can't complain. Let's take a look at those numbers. So, our high is 68 and our low is down at 48, which is pretty normal for this time of year. Barometric pressure, 30.34 inches of mercury, and the wind speed is pretty calm out there. It's only 8 miles per hour. Humidity, nice and low at 26%. Let's see what the rest of the area is having. Really nice on the radar today, can't complain, barely any clouds. Let's see all the people's numbers today. So, as you can see, Covington does have a little bit of clouds, but for the rest of the area, it is all sun, high 60s, low 70s. Everyone in the area is getting that same nice weather that we are lucky to have today. Let's see the next 5 days. So as you can see, tomorrow we are going to get that rain. Low is going to shoot down to 54. High is going to shoot down to 54. The low is going to be there at 45. Saturday we will get some sun again, and it's going to go back up to 72, which is nice. Low is going to stay there at 50. Sunday, cloudy again. At least it's not rain though. And the high is going to stay around there in the low 70s at 74. Low is going to go back up a little bit at 58. Monday, rain again, kind of similar to Friday, but much warmer at 72. Tuesday, again, a little bit of sun, but the high is going to drop down a little bit to 69. Low is going to be there at 46. Back to you guys, Sophie and Adit.
Water rates could increase by 10% starting in July if a proposed city budget passes. Join us next to watch my sit-down with Rockbridge Report's Jimmy Johnson III, who has been reporting on the proposal.
And Rockbridge County High School advanced Spanish students tell us next how a new tutoring program at Waddell Elementary improved their language skills.
The city of Lexington is proposing increases in the water rates and the real estate tax starting in July. City Council will begin discussing the fiscal year 2020 budget proposal tonight. I asked the Rockbridge Report's Jimmy Johnson III to outline the proposals. So explain some of the highlights of this proposed 2020 budget.
Yeah, so some of the big highlights are that the city is proposing to increase water rates by 10% and also to increase the real estate tax by 2.5 cents per $100. So those are two of the biggest things. And also some additional highlights include that the city is trying to budget some funds to hire an additional firefighter, which will take the per shift personnel from 4 to 5. And also teachers are kind of seeing an increase, so they'll see their salaries increase by 2%, and also school staff members will see their salaries increase by 3%.
Cool. So the biggest news is the tax increase and the water rate increase. Why is the city doing that?
So the city buys their water wholesale from an entity called the Maury Service Authority, and they are trying to do some new operating costs and hire some new staff. So they're increasing their rates by 20%. So the city has to pass that down back to the consumers. So they will see their rates increase by 10%. And also for the real estate tax, I was talking to Finance Director Gary Swink, and he was explaining that external costs have been going up, with the Rockbridge County Regional Jail and things like that. So to kind of offset that, they're proposing to increase by 2.5 cents.
What's been the reaction to that news?
So there's nothing they can do about the water increase. That's kind of just based on calculations to offset the cost by the MSA. So that's pretty set in stone. But talking to council members Leslie Strawn and also council member David Sigler, they're gonna examine the 2.5 cent increase and maybe talk about potentially decreasing that. Mr. Sigler was explaining to me that he is very, not concerned, but he's wants to look at if that's the best option, just because everyone needs to be conscious with everyone's money. So just making sure that is the best possible option. And they were both kind of concerned about having them both implemented at the same time.
All right, well, thank you. The City Council will meet in a work session tonight at 7 to discuss the budget.
The Lexington Planning Commission is researching other cities that allow residents to keep backyard hens. Right now, Lexington residents cannot raise or keep hens within city limits. City Planning Director Arnie Glazer said the commission will make a recommendation to Lexington City Council once its research is completed.
There is a major food recall to report. Advanced Pierre Foods, a subsidiary of Tyson, is recalling more than 10 tons of ready-to-eat beef patties. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says the company received at least 2 consumer complaints about finding purple plastic in the food. There are no reports of injuries or illness. The patties in question were produced last November in Oklahoma and were distributed to schools nationwide. The USDA said it did not provide the burgers as part of the National School Lunch Program. Officials say anyone who purchased the food should throw them out or return them to where they were bought.
High school students became the teachers in a new after-school program for Waddell Elementary School children.
Their first couple lessons at Waddell, I tried to sort of hide in the corner, and I noticed they kept glancing my way, almost looking for like reassurance. And after the 3rd lesson, they stopped doing that, which to me is incredible because they felt so confident in what they were doing. They weren't looking for me to reassure them or justify what they were doing.
Rockbridge County high school students in upper-level Spanish went to Waddell Elementary School every Wednesday for over a month to teach young students the language. The new after-school tutoring program is called Los Amigos and is a part of the high school's new project-based learning initiative. The initiative was implemented this year and is an attempt to move students away from standardized testing and towards hands-on learning. Gina Decanini was one of the high school students who became the teacher.
It's a great test of knowledge for us, getting to plan the lessons and teach class, but it's also been really great to work with the kids and get to share some of what we've learned and use it in a practical setting.
Although UVA is not the only one seed to make it to the tournament, they were not the first to arrive in Minneapolis for the Final Four. We'll have more on that after the break.
Well, Final Four is coming up, and I know I'm very excited.
I know, I'm pretty excited to see UVA play this weekend. John Ike, are you looking forward to it?
Oh yeah, I am. I am super excited, but I know that my favorite team is out of the bracket, so that's a bummer, but we have a lot to look forward to. Let's take a look. The Commonwealth's basketball frontrunner is in Minneapolis today preparing for their match against Auburn. The University of Virginia is the only 1 seed to make it into the Final Four this season. They beat 3-seed Purdue last week, securing their spot in the Final Four. Jennifer Meyerly reports from Minneapolis.
Hotels around downtown are full of fanfare. You can tell the Final Four teams have arrived in Minneapolis. Cheers and chants of "Go Green" greeted the Spartans to town. Michigan State faithful made the trek in hopes of seeing their team go all the way.
When you root for Michigan State basketball, you go wherever they are when it comes tournament time. And to get back to the Final Four is really awesome.
Texas Tech was the first to touch down in the Twin Cities. A band along with a path to their first Final Four welcomed the players.
And then when you see it, when you start watching the national shows and you see Texas Tech as one of the 4 names up there, it makes you swell with pride because our fans have been so great and so loyal through the years.
Auburn arrived and made its team hotel Tigers territory. Players will surely hear chants of "War Eagle" as the team also makes its debut in the Final Four. Right on pace, Virginia Cavaliers community hooped and hollered for the only #1 seed to make it to Minneapolis. They've waited for another Final Four appearance for 35 years.
It's like celebrities, right? How cool was that? They're so big, they're so awesome, so humble. Just love them. It was really cool.
Spring sports are well underway here in Rockbridge County. We're kicking it off with Rockbridge County High School. The softball team lost a rematch 7-3 at home to Spotswood this past Tuesday. This loss came after 2 prior wins against Allegheny and Spotswood. The softball team will play Broadway this Tuesday. The baseball team beat Allegheny on Monday. They won 11-7. They will host Broadway this Tuesday. The boys soccer team will be playing Broadway this Tuesday after 2 prior losses. They lost to Spotswood at home Tuesday 3-0, and Waynesboro won against the Wildcats 2-0 last Friday. The girls soccer team also lost to Waynesboro last Friday 5-1. They play this Tuesday at home against Broadway. The boys and girls lacrosse teams will play Cave Spring this Wednesday. The boys team beat William Fleming 23-0 at home this past Monday. The girls' game against William Fleming on Monday was canceled. The tennis teams will be playing Broadway on the road this Tuesday. The boys' team beat Northside away last Thursday 7-2, and that's not an error with our graphic. The girls' team also beat Northside on the road 7-2. Over in Buena Vista, the Perry McClure baseball team beat James River 3-0 last Friday at home. Their game against Craig County was scheduled to start at 5 today. They play James River again this coming Monday. The softball team did not beat James River last Friday. They lost on the road 14-10. That loss followed a win at Temple Christian last Thursday. They won that game 14-8. Their game against Craig County today should also be underway. The boys soccer team will start their away match against Craig County shortly. They're scheduled to start with the junior varsity team at 5:30. The girls soccer team will play at Auburn this Monday at 6. Both the girls and boys tennis teams are scheduled to play Allegheny this Wednesday. That's all for sports. Back to you, Sophie and Adit.
Beyonce is a force to be reckoned with, and Adidas knows it. The athleisure company and pop star are teaming up for a partnership of a lifetime to develop footwear and apparel. Queen Bey says she's looking forward to relaunching and expanding her Ivy Park clothing brand, named after her oldest child, Blue Ivy Carter. It was previously sold at Topshop, but will now fall under Adidas. Knowles has signed on to be a creative partner with Adidas. It's unclear how involved she'll be with day-to-day operations.
That's all for the Rockbridge Report. Thanks for watching.
For more, go to rockbridgereport.wlu.edu.
That's it.